What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Wildsparq Executive Live Sessions. We're so excited for those that are joining us today. We're going to give it a couple of minutes for people to hop in, get everything set up, get their lunch ready. I know some of you are still probably grabbing it out of the microwave, those last night leftovers, that meal prep that you had in the fridge. Get it ready so that you can sit in one place and enjoy this conversation that is coming your way. I am super excited about the content, the guest, and the value that all of you are going to experience that are tuning in for this session with somebody who is a good friend who I'll introduce here in a moment. But before we do that, we've got, I believe, an icebreaker question that we'll throw out to the audience while we're getting ready. You registered for the event, so it's no secret who the guest is and what the title of this is, the Secret Society of Success. It sounds a little cryptic, secretive, so it got me thinking about a good icebreaker question. And we've all been down those rabbit holes before where we've chased the truth in some of these conspiracy theories that are very popular. So my question to you as an audience is, what secret society or what conspiracy theory do you believe is most likely to be true? Which one do you think is most likely to be true? And I got a couple examples up here. The flat earth theory, Earth isn't round, Earth is flat. The moon landing, I know that's a hot topic. Bermuda Triangle, a lot of strange disappearances over there. The Bermuda Triangle. Area 51, are aliens real? Does the American government know about it? Are they keeping it a secret from us? Tupac and Biggie, are they? Did they actually die, or are they? Did they move off and live on some remote island somewhere? I don't know. You tell me. What is your conspiracy theory of choice? Which one do you think most likely is true? We've got Drake coming in with Area 51 for sure. Bob Lazar. I don't know who Bob Lazar is. I'm not up to date, Alex, on that conspiracy theory. Oh man, the Freemasons, Mount Rushmore, Nicolas Cage, the invisible writing on the back of the Declaration of Independence. There's a lot of possibilities here. Which one is it? Which one are you thinking? I mean, flat earth is just ridiculous, y'all. Come on. I mean, hopefully nobody out there is flat earthing it. No judgment if you are. Area 51, man. It seems like I've seen a couple of Discovery Channel shows, some National Geographic stuff on some people with some UFO sightings. I think there may be something that they're hiding over there in Area 51. I don't know. That's my choice. Anybody else got a last submission of a conspiracy theory that they think might be true? Leave it up to Dude Perfect. Leave it up to Dude Perfect, Alex. They can do more than just make trick shots. They can also prove that the Earth is round by going into outer space. All right, well, let's jump into things. I'm excited to bring on my guest and have you all experience some of the content that we've prepared for you today, and talking about the Secret Society of Success, conspiracy theory, in Daniel Andrews' calf muscles. I know Daniel Andrew, Matt. So I don't know how those things are real. So shout out Daniel Andrews and your calf muscles. Okay, let's get started. Well, without any further ado, I want to bring on my guest today and my good friend, Tim Schurrer. Tim is the CEO of David Novak Leadership, which is a 501c3. They are in the game of developing leaders. They're dedicated to developing leaders. There's a tagline that they have on their website: everything from preschoolers to the pros. they're developing leaders. And you may be like, Josh, how in the world does that happen? And how do they develop preschoolers and professionals? Well, they have a couple of different programs that they do that through, like Global Game Changers, the David Novak Leadership Institute, How Leaders Lead is another one of those programs. Tim has hosted his own podcast. He's helped produce one of the most influential podcasts, in my opinion, on the planet, with the How Leaders Lead podcast. If you haven't listened to that one, you need to go check it out. And he has literally written the book on success, which we'll talk about. Most of our time today will be spent talking about the secret society of success. But before all of that, Tim has spent time on some pretty dynamic teams like Apple, like the Apple, Tom's Shoes, which is one of the most generous organizations to ever exist. He's helped launch 2 other brands, Story Brand and Business Made Simple, alongside of Donald Miller, who you're probably familiar with. And then most importantly, Tim is a husband, and he is a father to his family in Nashville, Tennessee. Outside of all of those things, you could probably find Tim playing pickup basketball or hitting a golf ball somewhere on a golf course around Nashville. But Tim, thanks so much for joining me for the conversation today. Man, how's the game looking right now? How's the golf game? How's the hoops game looking right now?
I had a really great game 1 this morning, made a lot of threes, and I just got tired. So the last few games weren't as good, but I was out there trying to hustle still. But I have a lot of fun doing that. And then, trying to have a golf club in my hand from time to time. So feeling good, trying to get outside a little bit more. Good spot.
Yeah. Or hitting that like sweet spot here in the spring, heading into summer, where the weather is super nice on some of those days. So you gotta get out there and enjoy it, people. Right. And man, it's funny how quickly we get tired the older that we get, right? It's a realization that I can't play pickup for 3 hours like I used to do when I was 25 years old. That just doesn't exist anymore.
No way. No way.
Well, I teed you up. I don't know if you heard like the intro music playing in your mind in the background as I was listing off some of the cool stuff that Tim's had the opportunity to do. And I had to do that for you, Tim, because I know you wouldn't have bragged on yourself. There's no chance you would have listed off all those things. But I mean, you hear that list of some of the companies that you've had the opportunity to work for, and the people that you had the opportunity to work with at some of those different organizations. And obviously it's super impressive. I'd love for you just to zoom in a little bit more on your journey and some of the things that have led you to where you are today. What are some of the things you've learned over your time working at these different organizations and with these different people that have helped shape Tim into who he is today?
So when I was 21 years old, I moved to Nashville, and I thought I was going to be the next John Mayer. If you would have seen me back then, my hair was like almost to my shoulders. And, my whole view of success at that time was success is being famous. I wasn't trying to be a musician to, really help people. It was like, no, I just want to be famous, stand on big stages. And spoiler alert, that did not happen for me. But what it did do was it really launched me out on this journey of discovering what success actually is. And, some of what you talked about going from, Tom's Shoes to Apple to Donald Miller to now everything that I'm doing with How Leaders Lead and David Novak. I found something really interesting for me, which is the further and further I got away from the spotlight, the more and more I have been fulfilled in my work. Mm. And for so many of us, as we're coming up in our careers, culturally, it feels like kind of the message, the pressure that we are feeling is kind of get to that next rung on the ladder. Kind of be somebody that everybody's talking about. And when I hear these kinds of things, I'm like, I don't know. I just don't know if that's it. And so there's a lot of these experiences that I've had that have shaped my view of like, what's another way to think about some of this stuff? Because there's been some really key people in my life, key experiences that have taught me the lessons, but I really do think it comes down to how do you actually define success? Because the answer to that question impacts a lot of how you behave and how you show up consciously or subconsciously. And so, I'm happy that we're carving out time to really dig into some of this, because I feel like it really is that decision diamond, which will kind of launch you towards one of two paths, I think.
Mhm. You've done a lot of work with this topic of success here recently with writing the book, and then how you're sharing that message with a lot of different people. Tim, I'm interested to hear your perspective on this, on what you feel the breakdown is of people who have that clear definition of success, or maybe who don't have that clear definition of success. Um, I'd love to hear the the different challenges that you see with people coming up with that definition of success that you just talked about.
Mhm. So you kind of kick this off with these conspiracy theories, the moon
Yeah.
landing being one of them. So this is actually a great place to start. So somebody that has been so influential, and I'll use this as a way to get to the question that you asked. So somebody that's been so influential for me is from the Apollo 11 story, which, everybody knows Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin,
Mhm.
one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. But what a lot of people do not know is there's a third guy on that mission. And the guy's name is Michael Collins. If you Google him, like, you'll actually see a picture of him. And so what Michael's role was he Ubers Neil and Buzz to the moon, drops them off so that those guys can do all the things that they have to do on the moon's surface, while he actually stays back in the command module and orbits the moon 26 times until those guys are ready to be picked up and brought back to Earth. And so, but what I love about this story is when Michael Collins gets back to Earth and sits down with the press, it would have been so human of him to say something like, well, it sure would have been nice to actually walk on the moon. Like, he went through the same training as these other guys did, got all the way there, but actually doesn't get to walk on the moon and make history.
It's crazy.
But when you hear and read about what he does talk about with the press, he talks about how content he was to have had one of those 3 seats.
Mhm.
Like, he was just happy to be part of the mission. And why I think he had the perspective that he has is because he was very clear in his own definition of success. Like, he was content. He was willing to be a team player, show up in whatever way that he needed to for the success of the mission.
Mhm.
And so the people who have a clear view of success and those who don't, a big difference is their own content, like how content they are
Mhm.
in their own lives. Like, are you content being a part of a team in the role that you are, having the opportunity to lead the size of company that you're at? Or are you just kind of perpetually frustrated, always believing there is something, greener on the other side of the fence? And one really important part to make to call out here is being in the secret society does not mean that you have to squash ambition or that you can't have really high aspirations. Like, that's
Mhm.
not true at all. If you think about Michael Collins, for him to even be chosen to go to the moon, he was one of 3 people, like, excellent at what he did, best in class. And yet, secret society, like, it's a mindset. It's like a
Mhm.
heart posture as much as it is about kind of the role or the position you find yourself in on the org chart.
Mhm. So what you're saying, what I'm hearing you say here, Tim, is like it's not about being ambitious or content. It's about a balance between these two things, or like a healthy tension of ambition for the right reasons. Am I
Mhm.
hearing you correctly right there?
Yeah, it's like showing up for within the right headspace. Because I think
Mm.
that for a lot of people, the key to unlocking your own potential is to actually have a right view on a lot of what we're talking about, show up in the right way. And I think that you can achieve your potential, but you're going to be happier if you do it with the right mindset. And the right mindset for me is kind of learning to live in the way of the secret society.
Mm.
And I know that we'll talk about kind of what are the facets, like what does that look like in practice?
Yeah.
So somebody that I've been doing some work with recently is a guy named Eric Church. So Eric Church is, for a
You may
lot
have
of
heard
people,
of them.
country music. So Eric, he couldn't be more in the spotlight, right?
Yeah.
Like here's a
Oh, yeah.
guy who is famous on some of the biggest stages. So he spends about half of his year. He's from North Carolina. Spends about half of his year in Western North Carolina. And when Hurricane Helene hit, he saw and realized a problem, which is a lot of these people, their homes got completely devastated from the hurricane.
Mm.
And if you, let's just say, for example, you have kids, what are you doing in October after a hurricane in September when your house is gone? Like your kids still need to go to school.
Yeah.
So like, what do you do? Are you living in a hotel? Are you feeling like you actually need to, go live with family that's nearby? But like he wanted to keep people in the community. And so he, alongside Luke Combs, hosted Concert for Carolina, raised almost $25 million.
Wow.
And what Eric decided to do was launch a new initiative, a housing project to build homes and allow people whose homes have been devastated from Helene to kind of stay in their community and be able to live affordably for up to 3 years and then actually provide a path to home ownership.
Mm.
And so almost every single week since November, I've been on a Zoom call with Eric and his team and this, larger group of people that are a part of Chief Cares, which is the nonprofit that is focusing on this work. And we're trying to get 150 homes built in Western North Carolina while also really creating a blueprint and a model that hopefully will be an inspiration to the rest of the country for how you can respond to communities after disaster, right? But what is that? Like that is Eric Church showing up in the way of the secret society, and success is in this context is being about the assist, like helping others win. Eric could have just done nothing, and yet he's leveraging the position that he has, the influence he has to help others. So in so many people's lives, they're so consumed with like their own thing. And yet when you kind of have your antenna up for, okay, I'm in a position of leadership right now. I have resources, what can I do? Your need that you identify might not be, building homes after a disaster, but like, I'm sure that there's a need or something that you can do to help, somebody on your team in whatever way they need to be assisted. It might even look like development, coming alongside them and mentoring them. And so this can take a lot of different shapes, but the point here is I believe, what living in the way the secret society looks like is, you are about the assist. That is a way that you define success.
Yeah. It goes back to that mentality that you talked about just a few moments ago. Like it's easy, I think, when you see that success to start reading your own press, and it's just it's a battle that you have to constantly fight, I'm sure. But you're not condemning success, right? You're not saying like you're not thinking about things the right way if you get the type of stage that Eric Church gets to stand on. You're saying that if you're not using that stage to then turn around and help other people, then you may be doing it for the wrong reasons, and you probably don't feel a sense of fulfillment as a result of that. I would bet that you don't. I think that anybody who's on this webinar is probably growth minded. Tim, they probably have at least the gut instinct of what you're talking about, that it's true, that that helping others win is ultimately the most fulfilling and rewarding type of work that you could do. But obviously it's very difficult when you look at how culturally we chase after those titles. We chased after that recognition. I'd like for you to talk for a moment on what do you think are the biggest obstacles keeping people from fully embracing that secret society way of thinking about success and drifting back into the self-serving side of success?
Mm-hmm. So I think there is definitely an evolution. There is a spectrum from like being incredibly self-centered to, the other side of the spectrum is, serving others, helping others win. But that's a journey, and it's actually not an easy place to get to. That is the advanced level of kind of heading in that direction, and from my perspective. So, like, what are some of the baby steps? Like, right, what you're talking about? What's an obstacle? Well, there is a truth here. I think for all of us is you will never get the credit you deserve for the work that you do. And in fact, like you doing your job with excellence can often make you feel invisible. So let me give you an example. So one of my favorite places, I told you I live in Nashville. One of my favorite places to watch shows is at the Ryman Auditorium. And I'm at a show one night watching one of my favorite musicians. So for the first few songs, he's playing guitar, kind of standing in the center of the stage. And then, fourth or fifth song, he jumps back onto a piano, which is like a little bit back, on the stage. And what happened was the guy running the main spotlight lost him. And everyone in the crowd knew what was going on because like the lights doing figure eights all over the stage, like trying to find this guy. And the lead singer calls him out in a joking way, is like, "Gotta stay with me, bro." And everybody laughs, the show goes on. But I'm thinking, isn't it interesting that if the guy running the main spotlight was doing his job with excellence, he becomes invisible. And the truth is, for so many of us, like we can often feel invisible. So like, what do we do about that? And I remember back when I was working at StoryBrand, we had Dan Heath on the podcast, and Dan wrote this book called The Power of Moments. And in that book, there's a survey where they ask leaders, do you frequently recognize your team members for the work that they do? And 80% of them said yes. And then they interviewed the direct reports and said, do your managers frequently recognize you for the work that you do? And only 20% of them said yes. So they call that the recognition gap. Mm. So if you are doing this work and not feeling appreciated, we can get into some really funky headspaces and start like demanding attention, like somebody notice me, right? And we're not bad people. But we just want to feel seen and appreciated. Like that's just a part of being human, right? Mm-hmm. So what can we do as leaders to kind of help people feel seen? And I just really love what a friend of mine taught me. Her name's Sarah Sloyan, and she was executive vice president of EntreLeadership, which is under the Dave Ramsey umbrella, based here in Nashville. And she invited me to one of their team meetings. And what I found was the last few minutes, they carved out time for what they called shout outs, which is just some people giving one another verbal pats on the back for, the work that they had done. And it took a few minutes. Like a developer got a shout out for a recent update that they had pushed on the website. A couple other people got some shout outs. And then the meeting's over, ends on a high note. Everyone goes back to their desks. And so I started doing shout outs at the end of our meetings because I wanted that for in a moment, which so many of us experience this in our work. Every week there's work that is being done that people aren't appreciated or recognized for. And I just love that opportunity of every week, just not letting that happen, like calling people out for the good that they are doing, the work that they're showing up to do. And it helps people just feel a little less alone, a little less invisible. And it's a huge part of retention as well. Just the culture, the morale. when you create an environment where people feel appreciated, I just think that it puts everybody in a better headspace.
Yeah. The crazy statistic that it's like opposite ends of the spectrum, essentially, that 80% of executives feel like they're giving their team the recognition that they need, but only 20% of people are saying that I'm getting the recognition that I need. Craig Rochelle talks about you should celebrate people 5 times more than you think that you should. So once you think that you've celebrated somebody enough or recognized somebody enough, affirmed somebody enough, you should probably do it 5 more times. Then you're starting to get to the place where they would say that, yes, I am recognized in a way that I'm content with here in our organization, within our team, all that kind of stuff. Tim, I know there's an exercise that you even have people go through around this. Do you mind getting our audience to dig in here and get their hands dirty for a second?
I would love to. And let me do this first, because I think that there's a lot of leaders, when we talk about this idea of recognition, they're like, cool, cool, cool. But like, what does that actually have to do with growing our business? Is this all like fluff? Because sometimes the soft stuff, leaders just kind of chalk it up to like wasted time. And, somebody who I've learned a ton from on this front is David Novak, who, I know we mentioned him. So for those who are not aware, David was former CEO of Yum Brands, so KFC, Taco Bell, and Pizza Hut. And David grew the business in his tenure as CEO from $4 billion to $32 billion in market cap. But what I love is how he did it. So the number one thing that David drove at Yum was to create a culture of recognition where everyone knew that they counted. So leaders cast a shadow. People do what the leader does. So David, said, hey, if I want to drive recognition in our culture, I have to go first. And so David created what he called his personal recognition award. Oh man, I actually have one. Here we go. This is so this is David's
What is that?
This is David's walk the talk teeth. So what they did is they identified what are the behaviors that we know will drive results in our business. And for everyone listening, I'm sure there are some things that if our team members did these 5 things, it would help us grow the business, these behaviors. And so that's exactly what Yum did. They identified the behaviors. And then when David would see people doing those behaviors, he would recognize them. So what he'd do is, he'd see somebody, he'd write a note on like in Sharpie on the top of this. And then he'd say to the person, hey, I want to take a picture with you. I'll send you a framed copy of this picture. Do whatever you want with it. But I'm also going to take a copy of the picture and put it on the walls in my office at Yum, because when people walk into the office of the CEO, I want them to see that you're the kind of person who's making stuff happen around here. And what happened was he filled up the walls so much so that they had to start hanging them on the ceilings.
That's amazing. That's a ton of recognition.
But David said it's the soft stuff that drives the hard results. Like recognition actually not only matters for the people that you're giving recognition to, but also matters in terms of how you think about and have the opportunity to grow your business. And so this whole idea of recognition is huge. And what I love so much about it is it's like so simple that every single one of us can do this, because living in the way of the secret society, success is recognizing others. Like that is another way that we show up. So I would love to do this with everybody that is on this call. And, so what I want us to do is I want you to think about who could use a shout out. And, so who is somebody who is showing up in your world that is maybe doing something behind the scenes that really matters to you, that's making an impact for you? It would just be so easy for them to not be getting that recognition, but like, who's somebody that comes to mind? How do they show up for you in your life? And so what I want to do is I'm going to do this exact same thing with hopefully you too, Josh. I want everybody to grab your cell phone. I want us to take 2 minutes and send a text message to somebody and give them a shout out. So 2 minutes, I'm looking at the clock. Let's give some people some shout outs.
I'm all in. I'm doing this right now. Kara, Chris, Alex, Matt, Drake, everybody that's on the other side, get those phones out. We can't see you on our system, but everybody take a moment to do this.
All right. We're right at that 2 minutes. I just hit send. And anytime I'm on stages, I do this same exercise. And, at this point, usually what we would do is I'd jump off the stage with the microphone and just start running around and have people share, like, who did you shout out? You can read the message if you'd like, or not. I'm curious for you, Josh, put you on the spot. You want to share what you wrote?
Hit me, man. Absolutely. I sent a message to one of our product engineers here on the Wildsparq team. Shout out Jacob Justice. If you're listening to this, Jacob Justice. But we were talking recently about one of our college interns that we have on the product engineering team, and he was just telling me a little bit about how he was thinking about pouring into him and training him and giving him even opportunities to write code on the first day of working here. And I just sent him a message and just say how encouraged I was for the way that he thinks about other people. That's behavior that we want to see modeled again and again and again here inside of our organization. We know that's what's going to help us win in the long run. So shout out to Jacob Justice on the Wildsparq team. That's who my shout out went to.
I love it. And I sent a note. We use a company called Belay, which we have, they do virtual executive assistants. So I have someone named Tara. She helps me for like 45 hours a month. And we just started working together about 6 weeks ago. And so we're onboarding. There's been a lot of work to, just feel more confident and really being able to help manage my workload. And so I just sent her a note. I've really enjoyed getting to work with you the past 6 weeks. You always have such a great attitude, are super organized, and make the work we do fun, rather than it being overwhelming, which I know takes a lot of work. So just a quick note to say, I see so much of what you do and really appreciate it. And
so good.
What I love about this exercise is it took 2 minutes. And what I would imagine is every single person is going to get a text back. So in a world where it's just so easy for, us to feel invisible, like I just want to be the kinds of people, the kinds of leaders that help people feel seen and appreciated.
So powerful. And my hope, right, is that people start baking this into some type of cadence that they have, where
Mhm.
this isn't a one-time occurrence, Tim, that people do this, but it becomes a daily, at least a weekly habit that you have of just thinking it and saying it, or thinking it and sending it through a text message or a Slack message, or whatever tool that you use.
I
Well,
had a when in September, I got asked from Belmont, the athletic director at Belmont University here in Nashville, to come and speak to the entire athletics department. And they had actually he had copies of the book for all of them, of Secret Society of Success for all of them. But what I loved is they had already started putting into the practice. So
wow,
at the very beginning of their meeting, they had this was month 2, where they started the meeting with shout outs.
that's great.
And so I'm walking up, about to speak to this whole group, and like they started the meeting with shout outs.
Mm,
So just the ripple effect
mm.
is pretty cool. So you're right. It can be a text message, it can be in a meeting, it can be, a little email that you send to somebody, or a handwritten note. I just don't think that we can do this enough.
Mm-mm. No, you can't overdo it, people.
Hmm.
This is an awesome practice and exercise, and man, I get really excited about these type of things, Tim. Like the things that are very action oriented. Right?
Hmm.
It is super important that we have the right mindset and the posture towards um, the definition of success that we know to be true. But then um, what also is equally as important is how do we live that out in our lives? And so
Hmm.
I'd love for you to continue. And I don't want to slow you down. I'd love to hear a couple more examples of just how the secret society of success shows up in your daily and weekly life when you think about the way that you step into your work every day. What are some more examples that our audience could take away from the conversation today?
I mean, so on this idea of leaders cast in a shadow. I said that with David. He was really leading and pushing recognition. I noticed this at Apple as well. When I started there, Steve Jobs was CEO, and something we used to always talk about at Apple is um, excellence is the price of admission.
Mm,
Like that was not the aspiration. Like that was the standard. Like that was baseline. And I don't know the last time that you've walked into an Apple store, but the next time you do, just like peek your head under the tables, because what you will find is even the way that they manage the cables under the iPad table is done with excellence, like in the places that
wow.
no one sees.
Mm,
It's just so cool to see how when you have a leader who is driving a behavior or a point of view, how much that kind of can bleed into the rest of the company. And so after Steve Jobs passes away, Tim Cook takes over as CEO, and I found that he too casts a shadow.
mhm.
And one of my favorite moments of Tim Cook's leadership happened at the release of the Apple Watch. And where that was in history was when they released the Apple Watch, it was the first new product that had been released since Steve's passing. So a huge moment for both Tim Cook as a leader, this new CEO at the company, and for Apple. And so he's being interviewed after this big announcement on national television. David Muir asked him, "Is this the moment for you, the moment of your career at Apple?" So the answer that he gives, I just think, has so much more weight when you really do understand the context. People don't know that Tim Cook spent a couple decades in the shadow of Steve Jobs, right? Very much under
Mhm.
the radar. Everybody knows about Steve Jobs, but most people hadn't heard about Tim Cook.
Mm,
And so if I'm Tim Cook in that moment, I probably am like, here we go. Like I can't wait to tell everybody kind of what I see for our company and how I'm the man for the job. But I love so much the answer that he gives because he didn't take the bait. Like that's what, the opposite of the secret society. I call it the spotlight mindset. Like the
mhm.
spotlight mindset would have wanted him to take the credit in a moment like that, but he doesn't do it. So, when asked, is this the moment for you, the moment of your career at Apple? What Tim said was, well, it's a moment for Apple. I don't really think about myself that much.
Wow.
And his response to me really is, it reminds me of this plaque that sat on Ronald Reagan's desk when he was president. Hang on. I have one right here. So it says, there is no limit to what a man can do or where he can go if he doesn't mind who gets the credit.
Wow.
So how are you going to show up? Right? Like, are you going to use the next opportunity that you have to talk about yourself and to make sure that everybody knows all that you did to contribute to this thing? Or are you cool just maybe even giving credit to other people, sharing in that moment, that spotlight, and kind of shedding and spreading the spotlight to other people? So it does feel like a little bit of a like 1-2 punch, like recognition and giving credit to others. Like it's a similar concept, but I also think that that's another kind of head space, heart space, which is, are you somebody who is willing to give others the credit? Because I think that is one of the greatest characteristics of great leaders. And it's one of those other very tangible things that you can do to kind of show up in the way of the secret society.
Yeah, man, that's such a powerful plaque and story. I like to think that I would have taken the Tim Cook approach and would have totally deflected the credit to the rest of the team and all the people that helped pull off whatever it was, whatever the accomplishment was. But man, how hard would that have been? But from being in the shadow for so long, probably wrestling with some imposter syndrome of like, am I the person, that needs to be leading this organization into the future? And to have that first big moment to say, you know what, it's about Apple, it's not about Tim, is so encouraging and inspirational. Viktor Frankl is an author, wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. And he's got a quote. It's a longer quote. I'll paraphrase it. But he talks about success coming as the result of us forgetting to think about it in the first place. Really adopting like that he would classify as logotherapy, right? That focus on something bigger than yourself, that team, those other people that are around you that you can give credit to, is ultimately what enables you to continue to achieve success in the future. And so I think it's a beautiful example of that.
Somebody else I've learned a lot from is a guy named Andy Stanley. And I heard him speak at an event in Atlanta called LeaderCast. And the whole event was around finding your purpose. And, so for a lot of us, if you do those exercises where you're kind of trying to zoom out and think about the bigger picture, a really, normal question in that environment is like, why am I here? Right? It's like,
purpose
what is
question.
the whole thing about? Like, why am I here? And, I think Andy shocked a lot of people in the audience that day, because he said, that's the wrong question. He said, the question you need to ask is, who am I here for? Like a subtle shift, but a very important shift. Not why am I here? Who am I here for? And what I love about that second question is it still kind of takes you through that same mental exercise, which is thinking about the passions that you have, the skill set, your experiences. It has you do an inventory on all those things, but it puts you into that headspace of like, for what? And it's thinking of others. And I love this idea so much. When I got back to my office, I created an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And up at the top in big bold letters, I wrote, who am I here for? And I put the pictures and the names of every single person on my team and their families. Because I'm sure you've had those days, like this endless to-do list, a calendar where all the colors are touching, like no margin, an endless inbox. It's on those days where it's so easy to just I just want to beeline it to my desk and get my stuff done, right? But like it's on those days that I need to be able to look up at the wall and just remember to have my antenna up for the people that I am there to serve and lead. Like, this is my team. So who am I here for? Kind of going through that exercise is also another really good one. And for, anyone listening, I'm sure that there are some names that are popping into your mind right now. It's like when you ask a question like that, it's like, who am I here for?
Yeah.
And, I think that there's this myth that a lot of people believe, which is, in order for your life to matter, to have any kind of, significance, you need to be standing on a big stage or have a social media platform with, tens of thousands of followers. But I actually believe that you don't need a stage to make an impact. And in fact, success is one life at a time. So as you're thinking about, who are you here for? Maybe even the people that come to mind are like your kids.
Yeah.
Right? I hope that your influence grows. I hope that you have this, opportunity like an Eric Church does to be able to leverage this massive platform to really go out and do good. And so there may be some of us that happens. And yet, if you have an opportunity to lead a team of 3 people, or you actually don't lead people at all, and you just get to, engage in your family in the right way, set them up for success, think about, how you can support them. The number doesn't matter. It's more of a posture on like, are you going to make this about you, or are you willing to consider the idea that success is maybe helping others? Yeah. Just consider it, right? Like, I don't want to tell you how to live life.
Try it out.
I found that for me, when I went from the Tim who wanted to be the next John Mayer to Tim who's trying to show up in a little bit of a different way, like that has been the evolution. And it's still challenging though, because our default mode as human beings is to make it about us. And so we just kind of need these little reminders that perhaps it's not.
Yeah. Well, I heard that story in your book, Tim, and I you don't know if you can see it on my video, but up here on the whiteboard it says, "Who are you here for?"
Dude, I didn't even see that. That's amazing. Yeah. I see it now. That's awesome.
And so if you're watching, you'll be able to see that up there on the board behind me, but it's just a reminder. I think visuals are so helpful too. So I love what you shared about, I haven't created the whole board yet, the 8.5 by 11 that you talked about with all the families and the people on it. That's my next step. That's my 2.0 step.
Taking my picture of that little whiteboard there. That's amazing.
But I think here we go, y'all. This is another great action step that you can take. What visual cue could you put in place to remind you as you step into your work every day, the reason you're showing up to do the work? And the reason is there's people on the other side of the work that you're doing. And it's just zoning in on who those people are for you. Another great practice with this that I actually learned from a Chick-fil-A owner operator over in Georgia named Nick Westbrook. And he said one of his practices stepping into work every day is he will walk around and give everybody on his team a fist bump, look them in the eyes and just say, "Hey, how's it going?" And it, like, before he gets to his email inbox, before he gets to his calendar, before he gets to his task list, it just helps center his priorities on the things that are most important inside of his business. And that's the people that he gets the opportunity to lead every day. And so it just shifts that perspective initially to say, okay, supporting these people is the most important thing before all of that other stuff gets done. I'm going to get more fulfillment over helping these people succeed than I'm about checking off my personal to-do list that's over here on the other side of things. And so, Tim, I appreciate you sharing that. Here, as we close out, man, the last couple of minutes, I'd love for you to share just on the impact of the secret society mindset, the impact of it on problems, challenges, failures that exist in people's life. Talk to me for a minute just about, like, how does embracing success in this way change the way that you think about those problems, those challenges, and those obstacles, those failures that you were inevitably going to face over the course of your life?
So want everybody to do this, whether you're writing it on a piece of paper that's sitting in front of you, or maybe just even in your mind. Like, draw a line for me on what you believe a successful career looks like. Like, what is a line that would, kind of signify a successful career? And I don't know if you're like me, but there's definitely been a time in my life where I would have drawn a line like this. It's like,
Yep.
up
Up
and
and
to
to
the
the
right.
right.
That's it. So there's no failures, there's no step backs. Like, everything is up and to the right. And yet, like, that's not actually how life works, and we all know that. And so the last several years, I've become friends with a guy named Scott Hamilton, who won an Olympic gold medal in figure skating in 1984. And Scott has a skating academy in Nashville. And the number one thing that he teaches his students, regardless of skill level, is how to fall. Because falling on the ice, falling or failing in life is just going to happen. And so Scott, one day, he said to me, Tim, what if failure is just 100% information that you can use to kind of learn and grow? And I think so many people are just so afraid of failure. But, what I've found is success is embracing challenges and really learning from failure. And, so I think the question then becomes, like, how can we learn the most from failure? And there's a golfer named Ben Crane. He lives here in Nashville. And he asks himself 3 questions after every round of golf. And he told me he actually records it as a voice memo and will send this to his coaches so they know how to better support and coach him. So he says, what did I do well? What did I learn? And how can I act on what I learned? So if anyone has ever done an after action review, it's a pretty common thing to say, okay, what did we do well? What did we not do well? And, kind of from there, you make an action list. But I really love Ben's second question. It's not, what did we do well? What did we not do well? It's, what did we learn? Because he frames up even the things that didn't go well as opportunities. So that's another one. As you're, wrapping up a project or a week, run yourself through those 3 questions. What did we do well? What did we learn? And how can we act on what we learned? Because I just believe that, the path towards success is often, making mistakes, learning from those mistakes, and kind of getting back up so that we can keep moving forward.
Yeah. I think absolutely that shift in perspective from failures and challenges and problems as learnings is so critical to our future success, of how we move on past those things and fully maximize the opportunity that exists within them. I also think that what you're communicating, I think, also overflows into feedback. Tim, I remember, like, it was one of our first times connecting, and you sent me the new How Leaders Lead app. And not to brag on what y'all had built, although it was really cool and brag worthy, but it was with the caveat connected to it that you have to give me feedback about it. Like, you've got to tell me what you think and how we could make this better. And I think that secret society way of thinking is not looking at maybe some of that constructive feedback that you're likely going to receive when you ask about it, is being indicative of your performance, but as opportunities to learn and grow beyond that, and to continue to make things better and add even more value to other people while we all exist. Tim, man, as we round out here, I'd love for you to think about, like, as people reflect back on this conversation, having listened to it, let's just say a year from now, as they think back on it, What are some of the action? What's the action? What's the one thing that you hope that they do, or what's the thing that you hope that they remember as they reflect back on this conversation, moving forward, as you think about the audience today?
So there's this quote for me that has been a North Star. I was writing the book, and also just one that I just absolutely still love. And it's this guy, Albert Schweitzer. And he says, I don't know what your destiny will be. Some of you will perhaps occupy remarkable positions. Perhaps some of you will become famous by your pens or as artists, but I know one thing. The only ones among you who will be really happy are those who have sought and found how to serve. So may we today start to take steps in that direction, towards a view of success that looks like assisting others, recognizing, those around us, giving credit to other people, learning from failure. But really, at the end of the day, I hope that more of us can kind of show up each and every day, kind of looking at success as helping others win. And if success for us is helping others win, I just believe everything else will fall into place. And we're going to live the kinds of lives where we can look back on and feel really fulfilled by it, because we know that we've shown up in the right way. So success is helping others win.
Man, you heard it, people. Go help other people win. I'm honored to subscribe to the Secret Society of Success. I consider myself a member, Tim. I know that we probably just gained a bunch of other members too to the Secret Society of Success, all those that are listening. And I would echo what you said, man. My biggest hope for people is they get to live a life of joy and fulfillment because they realize what it's all about and what you just said. And that's serving others, not being served. Thanks for joining us today, Tim. I really appreciated it. And man, as always, it's so good to see you. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks so much.